Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov Chess Channel, and welcome to another brilliant game from the FIDE World Rapid Chess Championship in 2024 that we have followed now in the last 3 days. We know, of course, the winner of this epic chess event. It's the beautiful Grandmaster from Russia, Voldar Murgin. Congratulations again to Voldar for winning this event. I think this is a tournament that he'll memorize for the rest of his life for sure. Voldar gained 10 points out of the 13 rounds. Very, very great accomplishment, and congratulations again to him for winning this beautiful and spectacular chess tournament. I would say Alexander Grishuk is a huge surprise, but Alexander Grishuk is really maybe not even such a huge surprise because Alexander Grishuk, we know that he was a former world Blitz champion, and Alexander knows how to play chess, especially in this faster time format. He's a great tactician. He's always spicing up the games with some complicated openings, so deserved second place for sure. Great accomplishment again, also for Alexander Grishuk, finishing on the second place. Jan Nepomniachtchi, I would say, can be really satisfied with the outcome of his tournament. Maybe Jan was even the favorite to win this thing after Magnus Carlsen, of course, refused to continue this tournament. But Jan gained respectfully 9.5 points, is now deserved winner of the third place. He's only also half of the point behind Voldar Murgin, so great performance, I would say, also by Jan Nepomniachtchi. Dominic Perez-Lanier, a great result. Arjun Ergaisi's result, I would say, is really great because Arjun is a great classical time format chess player, and now he proved himself also in faster time formats. Arjun finished on the fifth place, only 1 point behind Voldar Murgin. Maybe in the next couple of years we can really expect Arjun to battle for the first place in this rapid and maybe also in the Blitz section. Yabokir Sindarov, always a great player, great also attacker, finished on the sixth place. Alireza Firouzja, probably we have expected that Alireza could battle maybe for the first place, but Alireza played sort of warm cold. Alireza played really brilliant games, but then also a couple of bad games, so I would say deserves seventh place. Although, as I said, Alireza is, in my opinion, always the favorite to be at least in the top three. Daniil Dubov finished on the eighth place, and a couple of minutes ago, my brother-in-law, the famous Agadmater Antonio, was here in my house, and we talked about, of course, about this event. And then he read an interesting fact that Daniil Dubov is now unbeaten for more than 40 games in the FIDE World Rapid Chess Champions. So in any of these events, Daniil Dubov at least didn't lose a game for more than 40 games, which is really, really crazy stat. Finished on the eighth place. Daniil Dubov, of course, always a pleasure to watch. But we wanted to show you, I think a very interesting result has Ramesh Babu Pragnananda. Ramesh Babu Pragnananda, unfortunately for him, finished only on the 17th place. But Ramesh Babu Pragnananda, we have covered yesterday his game against the winner Voldar Murgin, had a completely winning game, and he blundered a completely winning position. If Prague would have won the game against Voldar Murgin, I would say Prague would even win this event. So it was such a bad moment for him. But as I mentioned, like Arjun Ergaisi, maybe the next couple of years, Pragnananda can also then afterwards battle for the first place. But I really love the fact that now these Indian players are proving themselves more and more in this rapid sections. We know that Prague and Arjun are great classical time format players. Now you see they're also dominant in the rapid section. And the game that I wanted to show you today is really an interesting one. We have here Hans Moke Niemann against Hikaru Nakamura from the last round of this beautiful chess tournament. Hans Niemann finished on the 20th place, and Hikaru Nakamura finished only on the 45th place, which is, of course, not a good result for Hikaru. But this is such a strange tournament. One loss, one win. You can jump 20 places all over the ranking list. So it's, in my opinion, a really tough event where nothing can be expected. You see Voldar Murgin, we of course couldn't expect that he could win this tournament, but he had this brilliant event, and as I mentioned, is now the deserved winner of this beautiful chess tournament. So let's see now this game. I think this game many chess fans wanted to see, because we know the tensions between Hikaru Nakamura and Hans Moke Niemann. Here in the last round, Hikaru played with the white pieces and opened with the move e4. Hans' response was e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, bishop to c5, leads now the Italian game, the Giuoco piano. D3, knight to f6, and now we have the 4 knight variation after knight to c3. Hans is preparing this progressive b5 move, but Hikaru plays this idea to hop with the knight in the center of the board. Has been played many times because white has a great control of the square that's of course supported so far by the bishop and pawn's activity. h6 by Hans. We have bishop to e3, d6, and after bishop takes c5, d takes c5, we have reached now this position in which black has maybe this strategic disadvantage of this double pawns on the c file, but has now great control of the d4 square. The knight could jump here, and I think so far an equal game, nothing complicated is going on now on the board. Knight to e3 by Hikaru, castling. We have now rook to e8, supporting now further the e5 pawn, and now a4 finally by Hikaru. He doesn't want to tolerate, of course, a potential b5 move here by Hans. Hans plays now a good move, I would say b6, because if you prepare in some lines the move rook to b8 to maybe somehow trying to push the pawn on b5, then a4. A5 could be played here by Hikaru, then b5 is of course almost impossible to play because after a takes b6 en passant you could leave then here black and weak pawn on a6. So that's why b6 prepares now with rook to b8 and b5, this whole concept to break and enter here on the queen side. We have now h3, a theoretical novelty now by Hikaru. Hikaru is not allowing maybe knight to g4, knight takes g4, and then bishop to g4 to get pinned maybe by the bishop here against the queen. We have now rook to b8. Hans continues now with his plan. c3 by Hikaru, queen to d6, queen to e2, and now Hikaru is preparing to play rook from a to d1 or maybe rook from f to d1, supporting simply his backward pawn on d3. g6 by Hans, not allowing knight to f5 to happen. Rook from a to d1, and now the real fun starts here. Hikaru tricked really Hans into a tactical sequence that unfortunately for Hans, he didn't notice. Hans is now down after this move because he rushed it with the move b5. So b5 is an option. b5 is the move that Hans prepared, but it's simply not working immediately because, as I mentioned, Hikaru tricked here Hans into a tactical sequence after a takes b5, a takes b5, bishop to b5. The issue is after rook to b5. That's the beauty about Hikaru's move, queen to e2. He has now this idea d4, liberating now this diagonal, and now the rook is under fire. The only way to survive this attack to prolong the game for Hans is to play e takes d4, simply giving up now the rook, and now after rook to e4, knight to c4, great continuation here by Hikaru. Hans has to now stay connected to this knight on c6, and what Hikaru also accomplished here after c takes d4 and c takes d4 is that he can even simplify the game by trading off the queens here, and now in this particular position white should be much better. I would dare to say here white should be even completely winning. But okay, this is rapid chess. Hikaru has an advantage, but of course Hans is not going to give up this game immediately. He's still battling and tries to do something. Knight to d2, we have rook to e2, rook to e1. Good move again by Hikaru, trying to simplify the game till the end. And now things are getting interesting after move d3, which is after rook to e2 and d takes e2, a very unpleasant pawn to handle. It's very hard to attack this pawn. This square is taken by the king, this square is taken by the knight, so you would love to somehow get rid of this very annoying pawn on e2. Rook to c2 by rook to c1 by Hikaru, attacking now the c6 knight from c to b4. And the good part for Hans is that the knight on d5 is still connected to the pawn on c7. Knight to e1, we have bishop to a6. Hans is supporting now this very progressive pawn, and now knight to b3, going for the c5 score. King to f8, and now Hikaru rushed it a little bit with this idea knight to c5. I would say 99% of any players would play this move knight to c5. Seems tempting, seems that you continue with your pressure against the bishop on a6, especially in faster time formats. I couldn't probably see myself any better move than knight to c5, but actually this move is bringing now slowly but surely Hans Moke Niemann back into the game, because the better choice is here to continue. Let's see, the better choice, h4, then after something like knight to f4, now you go with knight to c5, and after bishop to b5, when the knight is on f4, you have this idea to kick away this knight, and then after knight to d3, many pieces could be traded off, and I think then afterwards this is completely winning here for white. But knight to c5 is a problem because now bishop to b5 is played by Hans, and now the knight is suddenly a little bit misplaced. The knight doesn't have so many good squares all over the board. The bishop's activity is bothering now here the knight on c5, and you cannot even hop with your knight on d3 because this square is taken now also by the bishop and knight activity. So Hikaru, after move bishop to b5, continues to play bad moves. A better choice is again to prevent this knight to f4 move that we have discussed. That's, I think, the only chance for Hans Moke Niemann to do anything in the game to activate this knight on d5, and that's exactly what Hikaru allowed. Instead of g3, he played f3 and allowed here now Hans Moke Niemann to equalize the game till the end. Now when the knight is activated on e3, these pieces are very well placed, and this pawn is still, of course, something that bothers black in the continuation of the game. Suddenly, Hans Moke Niemann managed to equalize the game. b3, we have knight to d1, rook to a1, king to e7. Here Hans is going forward with the king, and now Hikaru continues with the pressure with rook to a7, king to d6. The king is close enough to protect the pawn. Knight to e4, a check here by the knight, king to c6, and now Hikaru plays another bad move, a knight to f2. Knight to f2 is not so good because Hikaru should have realized that black has a great activity with his minor pieces on the board, and Hikaru has to now go back here with the rook. He has to control the c file because of potential knight to d3, you trade off here everything, and then after instead of knight to d3 is of course here not possible by white because this pawn would be rolling. But then you play a knight to c2, you're controlling still the score. Your knights are very well placed, king to d5, and then you can go for this pawn, and somehow you can survive this game. But after knight to f2 that Hikaru played, here Hans Moke Niemann plays a brilliant f5, and now the knight on f2 is simply out of game. You cannot even take here the knight on d1 because black is obviously going to promote the pawn here to queen. So this not working. So again, Hikaru didn't understand his tactical problems in the game, and he continued to push the position, and he played now rook to a8. He tries now to go behind this pawn, but this is not working because suddenly with knight to e3, the only good move here for Hans is preparing now to move knight to c2 and simply deflect the knight from the square and simply push the pawn further to e1 and have a completely winning position. Instead of this move rook to a8, Hikaru had to simply play rook to a1, then after knight to e3 or something, then rook to c1, and you're still in the game. You can survive this. Probably black should be slightly better here, but this was the way to go for Hikaru. But rook to a8, not good. Knight to e3. Hikaru realizes now his problems of both of this knight, and here king to d5. Another good move by Hans because knight to c2 is not working immediately because of rook to c1. The knight would be pinned then here, so this not working. Rook to a1, king to d5, good move by Hans. Rook to c1, and now c6. Maybe not the optimal way here for Hans. Black is still much better in this position. King to d4 is here the best move, simply going forward with the king. Then after something like knight to h1, you play f4. You play in sort of a Zugzwang, motif here. You force now white to react. Then after knight to f2, you go now finally with knight to d3, for knight from e3 to c2, and then if you take, of course, then the position is collapsing because of the promotion here on e1. So this is also something that bothers, of course, Hikaru in the continuation of the game. Now after rook to c1, as we mentioned, c6 by Hans, h4, maybe here better f4 to somehow stop here potential progress by black on this side of the board. But okay, h4, we have now king to d4 by Hikaru, and now g3. And here, after move g3, Hans has again this Zugzwang idea. What he should have played is a simple h5, and then after f4, then you go with your knight. And the issue is here for Hikaru that after knight to e4, finally this knight gets deflected simply from the defense of the first rank, and also the king can be activated then into potential line knight to e4, king takes e4, king to g1. Then look at this, the knight is coming into the game. Then you get closer with your king, and this now finally game over. You can pick up, for instance, this pawn the position is collapsing. But after move g3, instead of this move here behind to move h5, he played knight from e to c2, and this move again equalizes the game here for Hikaru, because after rook takes c2, correct choice, the only move here for Hikaru that is working, we have now knight takes c2, knight takes c2, and now after king to c3, we have now this idea, king to e1, king to d2, we have now knight to g2, and now e1, knight takes e1, king takes e1, and this should be now again a completely drawish position if white and black play now the game correctly. But this is a tough endgame. Look at this, both players were already low on clock. Hikaru had about 1 minute on the clock, and here Hans Moke Niemann had only 45 seconds on the board. Knight to h3, Hikaru plays now the good move, king to d2, king to f2, or king to c3, going for the pawn. But of course, Hikaru is also going for the g6 weakness. We have now king takes b3, Hikaru is also taking, and now Hans is pushing the passer on the c file. And now comes the really critical moment of this game. Here, in order to stay in the game, Hikaru has to play knight to f4, and then you allow just black to push the pawn. You go here, of course you go now closer with the king, and if in any of this line c2 happens, then you just give up the knight for a pawn, and then you can push the pawn on g4. You'll trade off everything. Black is probably going to continue with the bishop on the board, but this is not enough material to win the game. This game is a thematic draw. But instead of knight to f4, Hikaru battled here on the king side with the move g4, but this is not working because Hans is just pushing the pawn, is now close enough to the action, is waiting here to move f7 to happen. Knight to f4, Hans is pushing now the pawn, Hikaru is trying to do something with his idea knight to e2, but now Hikaru is pushing, Hans is also promoting, Hikaru is now promoting here the queen, but in this tactical sequence, black is left now with the bishop on the board, and still Hans is protecting his h6 pawn. Really unbelievable continuation here for Hikaru. He missed now this endgame idea, and suddenly Hans Moke Niemann has now completely winning endgame. Okay, Hikaru is battling, but now Hans is simply giving checks with the queen, gets the king closer. Now when you play this position with the black pieces, you should keep your pieces compact, close together, that white cannot deliver really perpetual checks. Queen to g4, bishop to c6, and now a new check by Hans. Hans is again getting the king closer to the queen, which is, I think, a good strategy in this endgame. And now Hans is going for this h5 pawn. The issue here for Hikaru Nakamura is that we don't have this wrong bishop position. A wrong bishop position is when maybe I don't know, Hans would have had maybe this passer on the a file, and this bishop would maybe attack here the light square. Then if you could just imagine the position when the queens are off the board, and maybe Hans is left with a bishop and this pawn on the a file, then still it couldn't be a winning position. But this is a good bishop because this bishop is targeting the h1 square, so Hikaru cannot go for the trades of queens here. He has to keep the queens on the board in order somehow to survive this attack by Hans Niemann. So this bishop is now a good bishop. It's not this wrong bishop position, a potential wrong bishop position that could happen in this endgame. Queen to b4, king to f7. Now Hans is just escaping some checks, corners now the king, and now a new check here by Hans Moke Niemann, and now finally he grabs this very important pawn and keeps now the queen connected to the bishop on e8. Okay, Hikaru is of course trying to battle. Hans is covering, delivers new checks, and now the position is slowly but surely collapsing. Hans is pushing the pawn further. We have now this idea, new check. Now again, Hans is just pushing, of course. Hikaru has a couple of checks, but never really perpetual checks. And now again, Hikaru gets challenged with bishop to d5. He has to now play queen to b1, queen to f5, and after queen to b6. In this particular position, Hikaru Nakamura resign. Of course, Hans is just going to play here, and in the next move to pick up this pawn on f3, and it's a position that's of course completely winning here for black. So the 10th battle, the epic game between Hans and Hikaru, ended with a winning game for Hans Moke Niemann. Hans with this win finished on the 20th place, which is still, I would say, a good result for him. Hans is somewhere there, also in classical time form chess in the top 20. Hans is very, very, I would say, a good player, but Hikaru Nakamura probably is not satisfied with this loss, also with this general performance in this competition. I myself expected more by Hikaru, especially when Magnus Carlsen didn't continue to play. I was expecting Hikaru to be at least in the top three, but unfortunately for him, it didn't work out. But you see, this is just a crazy tournament where everyone can beat everyone. Even Magnus Carlsen, I think, before he stopped to play in this event, didn't have such a great result. One losing game, 3 draws, 4 draws out of the first 8 rounds, so not a good also result for Magnus. But Voldar Murzin is, of course, deserved winner of this epic chess tournament. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Always a pleasure to watch these two enemies, Hikaru Nakamura and Hans Moke Niemann. If you want to see yesterday's game between Prague and Voldar Murzin, here's the link to the video. Please check it out. It was a really, very tense game. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.